I thought wedding planning would bring us closer, but I never imagined it would lead to a showdown in a bridal shop. Who knew my biggest rival wouldn't be just another bride, but my future mother-in-law? And the reason behind it all? Let's say it left me speechless. Brian proposed to me after just 6 months of dating. To some, it might seem rushed, but at 36, I had spent years waiting for someone who truly felt like my person. Brian was the one I had always dreamed of. So when he knelt, holding that small velvet box, tears of happiness blurred my vision, and I didn't hesitate to say yes. We flew to the small town where Brian's mother, Alice, lived, the kind of place where time seemed to move a little slower. I kept imagining our first meeting. Will she approve of Brian's choice, or will she find me lacking somehow? As we pulled up to her cozy, charming white house with flower pots lining the porch, my nerves spiked. But when Alice stepped onto the porch, her smile was warm, genuine, and welcoming. She embraced Brian tightly and then turned to me. "Maya, it's wonderful to finally meet you," she said, offering her hand. "It's great to meet you too, Alice." Inside, the house smelled like roasted turkey and apple pie. Dinner was already set, the table adorned with candles and fall decorations. It felt so inviting that my nerves started to ease. As we sat down, Alice asked about my life in New York, how Brian and I met, and even about my favorite Thanksgiving traditions. "New York must be such an exciting place to live," she said, her eyes lighting up with curiosity. "I've always wondered what it's like to wake up in a city that never sleeps." "It's lively," I said with a small laugh. "But sometimes the quiet of a small town like this feels just as magical." Everything seemed perfect until Brian and I shared our big news. "We have something special to tell you," Brian said, his voice brimming with excitement. He reached for my hand, and I felt his warmth steady me. "We're engaged." Alice's smile froze for a fraction of a second. She quickly recovered, offering a polite congratulations, and leaned in to kiss Brian. "What was that?" Disappointment? Uncertainty? Before I could dwell on it, her partner, Richard, stood up, tapping his glass with a spoon. "Well, since we're sharing news," he began, grinning from ear to ear, "Alice and I have an announcement, too. We're engaged." Brian clapped enthusiastically, and I joined in. "2 engagements in one evening? This is unexpected." But the surprises didn't stop there. As the conversations unfolded, it became clear that Alice and I had chosen the same date for our weddings. My dream venue in New York was already booked, but Alice admitted she'd always imagined her wedding there, too. She hadn't been able to secure the booking in time. "I guess I'll have to figure something else out," she said wistfully. Brian, ever the peacemaker, leaned over and whispered, "Maybe we can work something out." He suggested that I give up the venue and move our wedding date. The request stung, but I couldn't bear the thought of creating a rift between us or with his mother. "If it means that much to her, I'll do it." Alice's reaction was immediate and heartfelt. "Thank you, Maya." "I don't know how to thank you for this," she smiled warmly, the tension from earlier melting away. "Let's go dress shopping together on Black Friday? My treat." It felt like a strange olive branch, but I nodded. "Sure," I said, unsure of what to expect. After all, how bad can shopping with my future mother-in-law really be? On Black Friday, my alarm buzzed before the sun even rose. I groaned but rolled out of bed, reminding myself this was for my wedding dress. A little sacrifice was worth it. I threw on layers to combat the cold and headed out, clutching my thermos of coffee like a lifeline. When I arrived at the store, the line was already forming. The air was biting, and I shuffled from foot to foot to foot, trying to stay warm. Each time someone joined the line behind me, I glanced at my phone. Alice was running late. Where is she? Finally, 20 minutes before the store opened, Alice showed up. A gaggle of her friends, all laughing and clutching coffee cups, trailed behind her. They looked far too cheerful for such an ungodly hour, and judging by their rosy cheeks and bubbly chatter, I suspected a little champagne had been involved. "Maya, you're a lifesaver," Alice said, patting my arm like I'd been holding the line just for them. Without so much as a thank you, her friends breezed past me into the prime spot I'd frozen myself for. My red nose and stiff fingers were invisible. "Sure," I muttered under my breath. When the doors opened, chaos erupted. Women swarmed the racks like bees to honey, and Alice's friends were no exception. "Oh, Maya, this one's perfect for you," one of them chirped, holding up a dress with more ruffles than a flamenco costume. Another waved a gown that sparkled so much it could double as a disco ball. "Thanks, I'll ... think about it," I said. I darted between the racks, trying to escape their well-meaning but overwhelming advice. Finally, I spotted a few dresses that looked promising. Clutching them like a prize, I headed to the fitting rooms. The little cubicle felt like a sanctuary after the madness outside. I pulled on a dress and turned, examining myself in the mirror. It was almost perfect, but something was missing. Then I heard Alice's voice. It drifted through the thin fitting room walls. "She's a nice girl, but..." My heart sank, but was never a good sign. She announced her engagement just days ago, and now everyone's forgotten about my proposal. Alice's voice dropped, but I could still hear every word. That was supposed to be my moment. I won't let her outshine my wedding. I froze, the zipper of the dress halfway up. Outshine her? Brian's happiness is all I cared about. How could she see me as a competition? Deciding to act like nothing had happened, I stepped out and pretended to browse. That's when I saw it. The dress. Simple yet stunning, it was everything I'd imagined. I reached out, but just as my fingers brushed the fabric, another hand appeared. Alice's hand. "Oh, no, you don't," she said with a laugh. "I saw it first," I replied, gripping the hanger tighter. "I think you'll find..." I did. Alice shot back, tugging at the dress. The tug of war began. Women around us stopped to watch as we wrestled over the gown like it was the last life raft on a sinking ship. "Let go," I hissed, yanking harder. "You let go," Alice retorted, pulling with surprising strength. Then, with a loud "Rye-ipe," the dress tore straight down the middle. The room went silent except for the collective gasp of the onlookers. Alice and I stood frozen, each holding half of the ruined dress. "Well," she said finally, "I guess we're even now." Brian's face paled when I told him what had happened. "You tore the dress? Together? How does that even happen?" "It's not the dress," I said sharply. "It's what she said." My voice trembled, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "Alice doesn't even care about us. She thinks I'm stealing her moment." Brian ran a hand through his hair, clearly torn. "Maya, you might have misunderstood. Mom isn't like that." "Misunderstood?" I heard her, Brian. Every word. The argument spiraled. He wanted to play peacemaker, but I was done. Hurt and exhausted, I took off the engagement ring and placed it gently on the kitchen counter. "I can't do this right now," I said, grabbing my coat. "I'm going back to New York." "Maya, wait, don't go. Let's talk about this." But I shook my head. I need space. Stepping out into the snowy driveway, I realized how quickly the storm had worsened. No taxis were running, and my phone had no service. I felt trapped, stuck in that town. Alice appeared in the doorway. "Maya, I'll drive you." The last thing I wanted was to spend more time with her, but I didn't have another option. Reluctantly, I climbed into her car. We drove in silence for a while, the tires crunching over fresh snow. But then, instead of heading to the airport, Alice pulled into the parking lot of a small workshop. I frowned, glancing at her as she turned off the engine. "This isn't the airport," I said. "Just come inside, Maya. Please." I unbuckled my seatbelt and followed her into the building. The smell of fabric and the soft hum of sewing machines filled the air. Then I saw it. There, on a mannequin, was the dress. The very one we'd ruined, now repaired and adorned with delicate embellishments, tiny beads that shimmered like morning dew and intricate lace added to the sleeves. My breath caught. It's perfect," I whispered, taking a hesitant step closer. Alice stood behind me, her hands clasped nervously. I asked them to fix it. And to add a few touches, I thought. Well, I thought it might be something you'd still want. I turned to her. "Alice, why would you do this?" "Because I owe you an apology, Maya. I let my insecurities and selfishness get in the way. This wedding, this whole idea of perfection blinded me. I was so afraid of losing my happiness again that I forgot to make space for anyone else's." "You didn't have to go this far to make it right." "Yes, I did," she said firmly. Her voice softened. "You're going to be a part of this family, and I don't want our relationship to start on the wrong foot." "You're good for Brian, Maya. I see that now." For the first time, her words felt genuine, and something inside me eased. I reached out, touching the soft fabric of the dress. "Thank you, Alice. It means a lot." A small smile played on her lips. "I'm just glad it turned out okay. And you'll look stunning in it." I laughed. "We'll see if I even fit into it after all the stress eating this week." Alice chuckled. It felt like the first true step toward understanding each other. When we got back to the house, the tension had melted. We talked late into the night, and Alice suggested something unexpected. "Why not share the day? Two families becoming one. Isn't that what this is all about?" It felt right. Brian's face lit up when we told him, and we toasted to a new beginning. That night I realized perfection wasn't about venues or dresses. It was about the people who shared the moments with you. Alice and I became family. And that was the greatest gift of all.